This conference will now be recorded.
All right, we'll call the Lake Stevens Sewer District Commissioners meeting to order, and we'll turn it over to Utility Chair.
Great. So I'm going to call to order the Utility Committee meeting for May 24th, 2023 at 4 p.m. And we'll go ahead and do roll call. We have the Sewer Commissioners, Lawrence and Koshi and myself, right? And then for the city, Gary Peterson, Mayor Gailey, and then Ryan Donahue is absent. Is there a motion to excuse him?
So motion. I'll second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's go ahead and move on to the public forum and open it up to see if anyone has comments that they would like to share with the Utilities Committee. Okay, it looks like we have no pressing matters for the public forum, so I'll go ahead and close that at this time. We're going to move on to information sharing, and we'll begin with the 4A, which is the annexation, the update on the district annexation of the ILA, and I believe this is Mayor Gailey.
Oh, yeah, we're waiting on that to see where we're at, the assumption.
Any questions or follow-up for? Okay.
I guess my comment is this one's been around for a while, so we're just gonna let those folks not vote.
But we already missed them for this, for the current one.
Okay. So the plan is to, the concern originally was we have a series of folks in the community that haven't been able to vote. We missed it for this one. I don't know time, course, and speed whether we'll make it for the next one. So this one's a pretty easy pickup. I don't understand why this one is a struggle. I continue to not understand why this one's a struggle. This one's an easy one.
From the city standpoint, we just want to continue to talk about the assumption issues and hold off on this annexation until we resolve the assumption issues.
I don't follow the logic. Okay. It'd be like me saying I'd like to hold off on all the city infrastructure until we work out the assumption issues or something similar.
Yeah.
I don't see them connected at all. Okay. It's doing right by the population that should be voting and isn't. I think it's as much of a practical thing that we missed it this time, but as a principal thing that they haven't been involved in. It's something that this team could have cleared up months and months ago, and we started this almost a year ago, making sure everybody's aware. So that one's disappointing, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I would just add to it. I think we should really try. And as I said, it should be postponed. But we've got a primary coming up for, I guess, a lot of people in the county that have a candidate running against it. So it's going to save all of us a couple dollars, especially from the district standpoint, because we're the ones that have to bear the burden of the cost. But it's trying to get those folks live there. Because what I haven't heard, and sometimes you do hear sometimes, is if somebody contacts me that lived in that affected area and said, hey, I really wanted to run for commissioner this last time because you had 2 spots on, and they said I couldn't because I'm not identified as living in the city, but we all know we live in the city and this and that. That would be disappointing. So I think that irregardless, we should at least be trying a little stronger. We're making some good headways on the assumption stuff and having some talks. We should really try, and if it means having Greg Rustello and our legal kind of hammer out what they seem to be the context of the problem, where we can avoid having that problem in a way that if it needs to be addressed in a certain way to legally keep everybody's position, let's do that. Because I would not want to hear, because I've heard it before being in this chair where we've had folks that lived up off of Walker Hill at one time that wanted to run for a sewer commissioner and found out the hard way when their name wouldn't go into the online database because they're not recognized. So I don't want to have to find out if we did have some, because there was 2,000 citizens out of that area. So it is a significant chunk of people. It's not just like we left the neighborhood out with 10 people there. most of them have no idea what's going on. But I guess we could really try to do that. We've got at least an August primary coming up, and if we can't make August, I'm hopeful that we could make the general election, because there's a few of us in this room that are running. So, yeah.
I don't think there's anybody that's got a primary issue though.
No, but they have to run a primary because there are. Dave Summers from the county exec's office all the way down to some fire commissioners have it. So once you're already running a primary as a county, we're not paying full vote like if we just had a special election. We'd still just go on the ballot in a primary and decide, or we could do it towards the general election. But there are 2 elections coming in front of us.
Oh, I get that, but that locally, there's subject to this primary.
There's Surfers, Snohomish Regional Fire Rescue. I know 3 people running for 1 position in the commissioner spot. Yeah, that was the last second.
But how does adding these folks into the sewer district races affect what you're talking about?
Well, it gives them the option to vote. That's what I'm just saying. They should be able to have the opportunity
To
to.
vote in that
They
election.
get to vote on that.
They do for that, but let's say it came to a ballot to run something on the sewer district.
But we're not saying that.
Can I interject? So what this annexation ILA would be to allow the district to use the election method to annex that
Those
area.
people.
So we would have to put that on. Currently, they cannot vote for the sewer.
They don't even get a vote for Ms. Wright and Mr. Vallow that are running, and they don't get a vote for Mr. Koshu who's running right now. So it does have an
Hopefully
effect.
come November, they would be able to.
Well, exactly, if we could get it on the ballot.
Exactly, so I
Yeah.
guess why are we focused on the primary issue?
No, if that's where we could get it in. That was the only reason I was saying, is trying to get that on. Because they wouldn't actually get to vote if it was on the primary, because it hasn't been accepted yet. So
I
if,
get that, but there's nobody.
I guess what's the intent? Is the intent to move forward with this easy? I mean, we shouldn't, my view is we shouldn't be single threaded. There's some easy stuff we can pick up and have a win. You know, like the decant facility. You know, we have had our disagreements, but we did good work there. It was a good thing. This is a good thing, something that, it's just a good thing, but it's a principle thing. It's an easy pickup. So is the intention that we're just gonna keep pointing at the annexation and not do anything with this going forward? Or is there an intent to do something with this in a multi-threaded way with the annexation? Because otherwise I'm just gonna take it out, we'll take it off the agenda so that I don't have to get frustrated once a month talking about it and
If I
hearing.
may interject, I think the idea is just to wrap everything in one and get everything taken care of. So that's what the council feels, and I
Okay.
can't say I agree or disagree. I guess my position is this issue has been out there for years, and now all of a sudden it's this urgency. So I
Well, we've
guess,
been on it since July, Gary. It's not like this is,
I know, but it's been this way for probably 20 years.
This was brought up.
no, because that area didn't annex into the city.
They were
That's
with-
where,
Now, this
They were
issue,
within the sewer district
this issue
boundaries.
was brought up 4 years ago when Steve Ewing asked why wasn't certain people on my ballot in the sewer district race.
and it was just brought to our attention recently, and when those things
It
happen,
was brought up to the sewer district.
it was brought up to the sewer district, but Mariah's not been with the sewer district for 4+ years. She's been a commissioner and this and that. We've been trying to address it, because every time that I have gone as a board member here and we have rectified some of the issues like I talked about before, it was Walker Hill, then it was 112th off of 20th Street Northeast and that. So we've always had a mechanism in place of going to the city and previous administrations and saying, hey, we've recognized there's an issue here. We want to get this in there so we can have them voted in and just take care of it. Because that's all it's ever been.
So why wasn't that done 4 years ago?
Because we just found out from the county that they recognized that, oops, there was something there. And then when they notify us, and that's why we've been trying to work with the city, to have the city say, yes, because we don't have the ability under state law without you guys saying, yes, you can run it at the next one. Otherwise, I mean, if you want us to do it the hard way and go out there and just start knocking on doors and get a 60% petition, we could do that. But it really kind of comes down and shows, in my opinion, that we're not the true partners that we're talking about trying to work towards a common goal. And it gives me pause to want to move things forward at times when I think that this is the kind of, I mean, this is low hanging fruit. This is so low, it's actually on the sidewalk. And we should be, and whether that's a strategic plan, part of legal, because unfortunately we're in this legal issue together. And that's one part of there that it might have a consternation with a ordinance that was passed that's on hold with the city. That's why I'm saying, let's get legal together to get it rectified so we can do it, and if it preserves your position in one way where you feel comfortable.
And I don't have a problem doing that, Dan.
Okay. Because that, it's been kind of one of those things that's worked me up over time, thinking we should just fix this. This is so simple for the
Yeah,
public.
let's have legal take a look at it.
Absolutely.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Okay, we'll move on to 4B, the accelerated assumption update with Gary and Dan.
Well, we didn't get to meet this week. We've been trying to, I think the one thing that you and I, well, we do have to meet, but what we're really trying to get together is obviously we want Gene and we want Mariah in the room so we can get an understanding. We kind of put it, you and I, Gary, if I could, it's more at a political level when we're trying to get some idea of how these different positions will fall under, which at times it makes it tough to put staff to something that the electeds have an idea of how to do it. So I think from my perspective, what's really going to help all of us is literally, I mean, if Gary and I are there, but having Gene and Mariah also there, so we can fix it.
And Mariah, you guys met, what, 2 weeks ago? A week ago, 10 days ago.
About a week and a half ago, maybe.
Yeah, 10 days. So what was the outcome of that?
Basically, he wanted to know what my goal for my future career was. There was really no outcome of the meeting exactly.
So
Still not exactly sure what.
You
what
requested a
thought.
job description for a start process. We furnished that to you folks.
Yeah, so Anya sent over to me examples from other cities and positions that it may be possible. So we're still waiting for where does the city see that org chart looking?
We provided the org chart back in October. So, so we are meeting with the staff though on the 7th of June. So we're gonna meet with Jonathan and Mariah and then the department heads, the departments that are directly affected where we envision the sewer district staff falling underneath. So we can look at job descriptions. Hopefully, Mariah, you guys will bring your job description so we can see like what you guys actually do and how it's going to fit into the organization. And we have that meeting scheduled for June 7th to talk more about that.
Do you feel we're multi-threading it at this point? And what I mean by that is we have the legal teamwork. There were some concerns. Greg brought some good issues. I think there were some productive conversations there, and I think they're on a good track, or at least that's the sense that I get. At one point, we decided that we want the legal to kind of hash that out first, and so we're going to single thread it. I know you two have kept up the dialogue.
Two issues.
Okay.
There was a concern, I think, for the overall committee a month ago or 2 months ago, that the meeting needs to take place between your legal counsel, our legal counsel, and the union representative.
Okay.
That meeting took place, and the outcome of that meeting was that we can't do what you were asking us to do from a legal standpoint. Am I correct?
Yes.
Because we don't represent your employees, so we can't negotiate with them prior to them being part of the city. So it's kind of a, I guess, catch-22 in the sense you want us to try to figure out, their placement and so forth, but from a legal standpoint, we can't do that. And that's what that labor attorney told both your attorney and our attorney. And unless you've been briefed here recently, the last board meeting I was at, and Dan talked, you folks had not received that information from your attorney. Is that still correct?
I thought we had a path forward on that. I thought it was one of those things where, yes, it's a catch-22, but there's a path to be able to, and then part of it might be timing.
I don't think so.
But the union piece or the places was one piece that needed to be worked. There's several other
Right.
pieces that
Right.
could be also worked through while any legal pieces are being resolved, right?
And we, myself, Dan, Mariah, and Anya had a meeting about 3 weeks ago in this very room that discussed those other issues.
All right.
And out of that came this job description discussion.
Okay.
And so that led to the meeting between Anya, Mariah, and Jean.
Okay.
10 days ago. And so, I guess as we've said, we did provide an organizational chart some time ago. And I don't know as though we're receiving feedback that is productive in the sense of, tell us what the difference should be.
Well, the contract that we turned on February 15th made,
Proposal.
proposal,
And
made specific recommendations relative to what that org chart differences in
we've
terms
made
of
it
our
very
view of it, right?
clear that the position of the city administrator and the public works director, and that doesn't work for the city.
Okay.
I
Then-
made that very clear to Dan.
Yeah,
on
and-
numerous occasions.
And I'm trying to make it very clear that that could be a problem.
Exactly,
Okay,
and
so here-
we have been
Okay,
talking
all
about
right, good,
this, and
good.
that is a non-starter for the city. So
Okay.
if you wanna talk about, scratching your head as far as logic and so forth, I mean, we're in the same camp as you are regarding that annexation issue. It defies logic that we're gonna replace our city administrator and public works director, carte blanche, just because the things merge together. It doesn't make any sense, Kevin.
But you could create a role.
And we
That
have
is-
talked about that, yes.
So I personally do not know if you have designated a role underneath city administrator as like a.
That was talked about, I believe, at the meeting 10 days ago, as
That's
well
true.
as 3 weeks
And
ago.
so is that the role?
So I think that was because you and I had the conversation. We had a conversation, obviously, in our executive session about where we were sitting. You and I had a conversation that there is a path forward if we can create some things that would work. I think what really has to come down to is you, me, Mariah, and Jean probably sitting in this room to get it straight. So when you and I talk and they can listen or see how it's gonna go, we have a better understanding. I think we're getting a little, I don't want to say just convoluted, but we have so many players coming in at times and things get interjected to a point that you and I get confused what all of the roles and meetings and who is there. And I know it's tough to get Jean or it's tough to get Mariah at times because they have vacations or they're in training or they're in something. But I think if we're gonna really make some headway, I think you and I need to tell Jean and Mariah, we're meeting here. You guys need to be here too. Because it was one thing that I did check with Mariah before you and I talked, like, what's a good, I mean, you and I normally meet 4:30 and we deal with this later. Obviously, staff, I don't want to miss late as that. If that means we have to move our schedule up to accommodate, maybe at 3:00 downtown or up here and get us for there, so we can have a good understanding. Because I think some of it comes into the electeds are doing this from a political standpoint. And to ask staff sometimes to take on certain things that they're kind of not, like, that's more of a political question. How are you guys answering? Or giving us the feedback to tell it. So I have an understanding, you have an understanding, and if you have to go to one half and I for the other half, we're all in the same sheet.
Is the job description for deputy city administrator? Is that the job title?
I don't know what the label is to it, but
Is that,
the issue originally, Mariah was gonna report to the public works director, and then the discussion took place because you folks weren't satisfied with that, of her reporting to Jean.
right,
And my understanding is you're not real with that either. Is that correct? No? Okay, I misinterpreted it.
so just me, as a commissioner, I'd like to see the deputy city administrator position. It doesn't have to be replacements or, but more of a equal footing for leadership opportunities.
And I don't think we have a problem with that.
Great.
In the sense of having opportunities available to everybody within the city to, move through the ranks or whatever. As far as taking somebody and placing them in a position of city administrator, we have a problem with
Yeah.
that.
I understand what you're saying. I think a deputy city administrator, so the org chart's still from October, so that wasn't what I I had envisioned, I'd still like to see a position where it's greater than underneath Public Works.
So let me ask you this, Andrea. What does that do for the city? What does that position do in the city?
I'm telling you that someone is gonna make you look really good, Brett.
But that's not about making me look good. It's about being an efficient, effective position.
So who,
And for me to add a deputy city administrator, then I have to think, well, what does that person do?
so who right now, when Gene is out of town, is your second in command? You must have someone.
It's right now Aaron.
Aaron, you're second in command.
He's
So if
acting.
he is not there, then you take all the calls, or the leadership and,
It
okay.
rotates
So
right now.
So rotates among who?
The department directors.
Okay.
because what we have is we have directors who are all in different stages of leadership advancement, right? And knowledge in their own areas. And so what we do is when Gene is gone, it's Russ one time, it's Anya a couple weeks ago, it's Aaron this time,
Okay.
right? So when I look at a deputy city administrator, I think to myself, what do they do? And I don't want a position that is just there just to be there, right?
Right.
So that doesn't make sense to me. And so, and then to put just someone in there who doesn't have the breadth of knowledge of city leadership and municipality government,
Mhm.
right? That other folks have been working towards, then I have problems with that.
How do you work towards it, or what are the qualifications for a position like that? So if you're alternating it, I hate to take too much time over
No,
this.
you're
No,
fine.
no,
This
that's
is
fine.
too many.
We're here for.
No, that's good.
So you're talking qualifications, I've heard Gary mention before, working towards, I can't think of the right words, where you're like, accreditation, thank you.
Yeah.
What is, to my knowledge, there's no accreditation for city administrator.
There's ICMA credentialed managers,
What is that?
which is International
City
City
Managers
Managers Association.
Okay,
I guess one thing that I look at running a large organization in the city once before is when you're a chief or a commander, you don't put an officer in charge. And it's not taken away from your leadership roles in there. But I look at the HR director has a very, very specific role that manages a lot of things, like a public works director, like a parks director, like a police chief. You have to be, while it's great to give people opportunity and start taking a look at, this ain't a small city anymore. We're not 12,000 people, we're not just 2 directors and there's a bunch of other, it's a very specialized thing. When I look at a city administrator, really what a city administrator is, and there's no offense, but they really work, their job is to follow the mayor around 24/7 and make sure things get done. And to be able to to do that and then still try to manage some of those things, other things that they have in their plate, it ain't gonna get done. In a city our size, having a city administrator who is constantly, because at that point, you're no different than the elected official, that you're carrying out the rules of the day. Or whatever's coming down the pipeline, that the mayor, council, this and that.
Hey, Dan, tell me something. So I appreciate your philosophy on city government and city leadership, but right now I'm the mayor. And that's not the relationship I have with Gene.
Okay.
Gene is very much what I consider an executive officer on the military side. He runs the staff.
Okay.
He doesn't follow me around. He runs the staff. And that's what I expect him to do. Because my job as the mayor is to make those decisions that need to be made, be seen in the public, be on those boards and those commissions that bring back assets into this city. And Gene doesn't follow me around to do that stuff. Gene takes
It's
care
not
of
to
it.
be offensive, and I'm sorry if you took it that way. I wasn't trying to say he was.
Well,
but
what I
that-
don't need
but-
you to do is tell me how to run my staff. Okay? That's what I'm hearing from you, and that's just not where I'm at. That's not how I run my staff. So I'm gonna go back to Andrew's question.
okay.
A deputy, we're not big enough for a deputy. Everett's big enough for a deputy city administrator. We're not big enough for,
What's our staff for the city right now?
we're 120-ish.
Okay,
That's including cops, right?
okay.
So when I look at a deputy city administrator, I just don't know what they do. What I do need is a deputy public works director who knows sewer.
But that's Aaron.
No, Aaron's a public works director. What
Oh,
I
okay.
do need
Okay.
is a deputy public works director who would know sewer.
Mhm.
Mariah would be perfect. What I do need in the interim of the assumption is an interim deputy city administrator who can make the assumption come together. And then move into the deputy public works director spot. That's what I need.
Which is who? I'm so sorry, because I do not have the org chart in front of me and I cannot
Okay,
remember. it
envision
from a
this.
couple months ago.
Envision this.
Yeah.
Assumption happens tomorrow.
Right.
Mariah, because she's super talented, comes over and she's the interim deputy city administrator. And her main function is to make sure both of our organizations come together flawlessly and
Okay.
seamlessly.
Deputy city administrator.
Interim. Interim. And then when we're assumed and everything's copacetic, she falls into the deputy public works director position, mostly over sewer, because that's what I need as the mayor. That's how I envision this.
Okay.
And she's talented in all those areas, and that's what I would need her for.
When you say interim, is this like, it's just however long?
However-
Just loose.
Bridge the gap of the
Bridge the
integration
gap.
and then move. That's
Exactly.
what I'm hearing.
Okay,
Exactly.
That definitely
That's
gives
what
me
I need as
clarity.
mayor.
okay.
And I appreciate knowing all that, because it helps me decide the direction I want to go as just one of the commissioners and how I would vote for any of that assumption aspect of it. Because, this has probably been the most honest conversation we've all had, and even the previous, of where we're gonna go or how we're gonna lay things out. Because I would rather somebody tell me, yes, it's only gonna work that way for 2 years and then it goes here, because,
You make a decision.
I make a decision. I could be possibly one of the last commissioners here, because if we assume early, then we would be there. If we ride it out, then it wouldn't be. There'd be another term. But that's what I need to know. And I appreciate the fact that that's where you're looking, because guessing is nobody, we don't want to do that. But that gives me a timeline and thought how we're going to, I say we as an organization, but I'm just one of the votes, want to take a look at it, how we're going to fold that in, so.
What's the capital budget of the city, just round numbers?
Capital budget for expenditures or?
Yeah.
For projects or the
Yeah,
entire?
project, yeah, total amount of money sitting there that can be assigned to capital projects.
Honestly, it varies.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we got a TBD now.
Yeah, we have
coming
a
at us,
TBD
and
now. It's between
Capital projects are
the
every
low
one.
end 5 million and it goes up to over 20 million based on.
General budget's what, 27? Total budget for the city is about 50 million or something. You guys are about 16 million.
But I think as an interim city administrator, there's critical things that have to happen. HR departments have to come over, finance departments have to come over, and it's critical. Mariah's super smart to be able to integrate both the city and the sewer district, and I think that's why that's a great spot for her to work directly under Gene to make sure all those things happen and people are listening to her.
One of the big concerns, and I've said it before, is that leadership layer is really important. I hear your view in terms of it's more of a straight integration, and probably how I do it if I sit in your seat, or how I prefer to do it if I sit in your seat. So I respect that. The district, in terms of the culture that's been built here, I've pointed to multiple things. That piece to remain intact is critically important to me as the organizations come together at whatever time they come together. And I'm not sure that lands with, I'm not sure that it can land as successfully as it can with the model you described. And that's something I need to tease out as we work through this thing. But just to be completely candid, that's where mine is at.
One of the things that we're obviously concerned about, Kevin, is efficiencies. And in the proposal that you sent over, creates so many silos of inefficiency in the sense that it brings over a separate HR department, a separate accounting, a separate assets, and there's no efficiency to that. It's mere duplication of everything. And so when you say, I guess that you want to keep the culture in place and so forth, that's what you're alluding to, right? Keeping everything in place, changing the name only. And I guess if you're integrating two fairly significant organizations, I don't know how you keep those separate.
What I'm referring to is less about the entire org structure and more about the leadership structure. My comments I just made here. And when I talk about culture, that piece of it is more important, or I think a bigger determining factor on whether that culture remains intact than if everything remains as a separate department. And I think there's room to negotiate and all that, but and
Well, I guess to what degree is that leadership? If she's the interim city administrator, is that facilitating that process for the sake of, I guess, shepherding those employees and integrating those folks into the city? Is that not good enough? Or are you I guess I'll just ask you point blank, are you fixated on this wholesale change that you've proposed numerous times?
I'm not fixated on the wholesale change, but we have an offer, the proposal that we put in place had specific things in it.
Right.
I think there's some middle ground between what was discussed here and that proposal that was put in place back on February 15th.
Well, I guess I would like to hear those because I have made our concerns clear to Dan in our meetings as to what is not acceptable.
What I
I
hear
don't
is
know,
coming
so
back is
that's
about
getting
the same.
there.
Well, what's coming back is about the same as what I saw in the org chart back in October. I'm not hearing a lot of movement. Or maybe you can tell me what the movement is from the October org chart to what we're talking about here this afternoon.
And I would say there probably isn't much.
Okay.
Because like I said, as I just explained, creating these silos of all these individual items, there's no efficiency in that. And that's, from the city standpoint, we're trying to create that or accomplish that efficiency. And so to create a separate HR department for the sewer side of it, a separate payroll department for the sewer side of it, a separate inventory of the sewer side of it, it just goes on in this proposal. That's not efficient
So
whatsoever.
when you did the analysis around efficiency, how did you get the efficiency? How do you define that? Because the only way, and again, I'm just pure corporate guy, right? How we do efficiency, we take it out of staff costs. That's how we do it. It's called synergy. We map it out and we know exactly. So
You
if
tell
not,
me
let
that
me
two
finish.
repetitive
Let me finish.
exercises
If
are
no
as efficient as
staff
one.
is changing, the number is the same whether it's organized like A or it's organized like B. How did you measure the efficiency of blending it?
Duplicate work, waste, costs, and
Where does
programming.
Different systems, right? Like, why would we, what you're saying is you'd have a different financial system within sewer, while we would have a different financial system within city. That's gonna cause problems, right? Like if you stayed with Casella and we stayed with Springbrook, that's gonna be problematic. So, I mean, that just doesn't make sense.
But has it been? So there's an upfront cost to integrate around. Take the financial system. There's an upfront cost to integrate around two different financial systems, right? You hire consultants, you do whatever that looks like. It takes additional staff time. It's harder before it gets easier. All of that, right? Now in the end, maybe it's less. I would assume it'd be less, otherwise it wouldn't integrate. But is it just intuitive feel, or has there been effort to really look at those pieces? Because the big synergy savings is typically staff. And so,
Correct me if I'm
So,
wrong. You have a number of folks that are retiring in the next 3-4 years. Is that not correct?
There are people that have that. I mean,
So
we've
you
already
got
gone.
natural attrition, correct?
we all do, sure.
Okay, so again, we don't know how to run a sewer district. The folks at the treatment plant are there, they're an asset. The folks in your inspections, they're there, they're an asset. I don't see that changing at all.
And Kevin, if you're saying that you think we're going to create efficiency by getting rid of some of your people, we've already gone down that rabbit hole. Like, we've gone down the rabbit hole so many times. We've said multiple times, we have a spot for every single one of your people. We have a spot for every single one of your people. We're not gonna create efficiencies on the backs of getting rid of anybody. In any of your departments, we have a spot for everybody.
And I believe that. the bulk of the cost is the people though.
It
The
is.
programming and systems, yeah, that'll nibble around the edges a bit. I think it'll be less material than what we spent on legal fees between the two firms for many years. So I guess what I'm suggesting is, I would suggest that we come back, and I think the city's committed to turn that contract back to us with red lines or what have you. I mean, it's 100 days tomorrow since we offered it up, right? And it's good to hear that it's been multi-threaded, where we've had legal working and there's been dialogue and there's been meetings. That's helpful. I find that encouraging because we're working on it. I think somewhere along the line, we need to turn that back and try to find some middle ground in this piece that's something different than what I've already heard in October, and it's more polished and more articulate now, but it's the same message in October. I get that you didn't like what, the management structure that we put forth in February 15th. Didn't expect you necessarily to, but it's a starting point. So I think the conversations need to work back to what does that middle ground look like, that's somewhere in between to be able to make this work.
I will add that there has been some movement since October. So this idea of the deputy city administrator was not on our October proposal. So that interim piece. So that is a movement that we've made.
I think we've labeled it, but I heard that idea, we'll have the general manager fill this role for a period of time and then it'll.
Yeah, and I appreciate that role went in there. I guess what I see now or learning, which I'm grateful that we're open and honest in that way, that's not a sustainable position under your law. And so it leaves me, what I don't want, in a way, is to have our folks come over and feel like they're a second-class citizens. And that may not be per se with the collection group or the treatment group, because they really know how to run the system, as you and I had that conversation. But I would like to see, what I get the feeling, and feeling when you're at the elected level means a lot, is if the administrative staff that we have put collectively together in this organization is going to, if I feel they're going to be treated as a second class, that you're only here long enough till we can manage what we need to manage. I'm not going to sell the district out that way. That's just me. I'm sorry. My perspective is I want this to be a smooth transition because we got a clock that's ticking towards 2033. But I can't do it in good conscience to know that the organization is not going to be, we're not going to have a culture of acceptance between the two. And it almost feels like, I get it. It's tough when management teams have to come together from two different organizations and everybody's trying to do the dance to feel good, because nobody likes an arranged marriage, per se. But that's, unfortunately, the electeds are trying to do that, and we're honest enough to know how this might work. But it means a lot, because I will tell you, being part of this organization, as we've hired people, my commitment to them as an elected was a career for them as long as they were doing their job. And I can't say that in good faith if I'm selling them down the road early. So that's an issue I really have to struggle with at times if I know that's there. So.
And I think that's a key reason why Mariah would be in the interim deputy city administrator spot, to ensure that cultures meld, that personnel meld, that sections meld, that all
but
that
knowing that is not a long-term prospect.
What if you put a time frame on it? Or maybe it's too hard. I don't know. Maybe Anya, you have feedback on that. But like
the time frame on what?
Like what that
An interim role.
Yeah.
I think it depends on like when we start the transition process or when we bring Mariah over. Because we had talked about bringing her over prior to the actual assumption date. But I think we've talked about that might not be feasible. And so if it's after the assumption date, how much longer do we need to transition? I think that's gonna depend on, the culture and everything that needs to be happen afterwards. I don't know that we can determine that 3 years in advance or however many years in advance.
It's just a thought that could be something that could.
Let me give you one.
Good faith. Do you know what I'm saying?
Here's one.
Like 3 years, I think, is a great thing to throw out. I'm just.
For the interim role, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not interim.
But that's what Gary
Well,
just
but
said.
we had talked about 3 years as far as a time frame to accomplish this full integration.
Just remember, the Snohomish County Health District merged with Snohomish County in 6 months.
Yeah, but those are different organizations. Let's not compare
Yeah, it's a
apples.
much huger organization.
Well,
Let me put it.
Much more issues involved.
Here's the
were they dealing with elected officials that were from the public in the Snohomish Health District? No.
Many more unions to deal with, many more points of issues.
I think that's fair. If we were at 2030 right now, and contractually we're gonna merge in 3 years, I think the proposal, how approaching it, interim and all, makes complete sense. I think deputy, public works makes complete sense. The merger's gonna happen in 3 years. It's the city show. You gotta absorb it how you wanna absorb it. You need to make sure it fits in your organization. I would have no issue. But what the ask is to merge 6 years early. And because there's that ask, and there's a concession from the district side, there should be reasonable expectation from the city that there's gonna be some concessions from the city side. It's not gonna look like it would look in 2030. It isn't. And so that's the part where we gotta get together. We're giving up 6 years of running the district. There needs to be some concessions coming the other way, not here's the same names and the same structure from October and this is off the table and announce it.
Dan and I have talked about this numerous times, and my personal feeling is, I think the concession is that we are controlling the destiny, in the sense that if 2033 comes, we're not all here. You may have a mayor that says, okay, 2033, we've got the sewer district, see ya. You're not in control, nobody's in control. And what good does that do? So the concession in my mind is mapping out something that protects everybody so that we can have this integration. And if that's not good enough for you, then so be it.
Yeah.
But that's my standpoint as to controlling the destiny of the two entities merging together. You have control.
For me, that's,
Well, that's your
yeah,
personal
yeah,
feeling.
for
So
me, that's like,
that's-
the landscaping's nice, but the structure is still flawed of the structure.
Whatever
It's a
you
nice to
wanna call it.
have from my perspective.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I don't know if the employees would care for that synopsis. But
Well, it just, there's statutory protections, there's other things
No,
that are in
exactly.
place, right?
Exactly.
So,
Which are in this agreement that are kind of nonsense stuff that you propose, so they're
Right.
already in
But-
law.
But Kevin, here's one of the issues that I have with what you said. It's not about the city or the sewer district. It's about the taxpayers and the ratepayers, right? And it really comes down to, no one needs to give concessions to anybody other than the taxpayers. And if you can merge two organizations and create efficiencies in permitting, create efficiencies in operations, create efficiencies in administrative costs to benefit the taxpayer, why does there have to be concessions between the organizations? I don't.
you're setting up you're painting a scenario of efficiency that the ratepayer may or may not buy based on looking at the performance of both organizations. There's certainly some strengths in the city and there's certainly some strengths in the district. My priorities are, the district's priorities are my priority. There are three things: protecting the environment, protecting the ratepayer, right? And then making sure our employees are engaged, productive, and bought in, because it supports the other two in a big way. Those are three priorities,
Those
right?
are great three
Right.
priorities.
So the question would be is, if there's going to, and I have a great confidence in the control and the management structure of how things are structured now. It's a known entity, known performance, all of that, right? So to merge it early, there's more uncertainty in that. I mean, I get what you're selling relative to the efficiencies and everything, and you guys, the city commissioned a document that I took issue with at the time and still, have my issues. but it said we're gonna save $500,000. We burnt more than that on legal fees already. It had no legal fees in it. So I question in the analysis that was paid for. So, I question how much thought around these efficiencies are in there. I'm willing to step through, because I know we're gonna merge eventually, but not having control or having other people make those decisions, that's just kind of the process, if you will, if it goes that direction, not a concession. And the concession really is to give assurance around those three: environmental protection, rate. I look back at the rates, it'll be in the voter's guide. Our rates, looking at the last 6 years, have increased less than the rate of inflation. A one big rate increase, which is painful. Look at that over those 6 years. It's less than the rate of inflation, 3.6 versus a little over 2. And so that level of performance, I think, is recognized by the population. So it is about the population, is about the ratepayer, is about the environment, it is about having engaged employees. And the contract or the proposal that we put in place on the 15th is reflective of that. And I understand some of it's not palatable. So we've got to come together, and it means we're both going to give up a little something to find a solution and a path if we're going to do it early. Or we're not. And
We are.
I hope so.
We are,
I hope so.
right? Yeah, Brett?
Well, the hope is.
Can I say a few things? So we do have a draft counter proposal. I got from the city attorney on Monday. I distributed it to our internal team. I expect to get that back to you guys end of next week, the following week, or at least our attorney will get it to your attorney.
Yeah, we'll deal with that. Appreciate that.
I wanted to speak to something that you said, Dan, which is you don't want the employees to feel like second-class employees. And I think one way to do that, your proposal sort of creates a sewer district within the city in a lot of ways, where sewer district employees continue to do what sewer district employees do. That's not synergy. That's not integration. That's not building relationships. So that's problematic with what you're describing. I don't think it will resolve the sort of the loggerheads that can happen when we say, for example, we have three crews of public works. We have parks, streets, and storm. And one thing I sometimes do from time to time to shake things up is move people around. Because streets might say, well, streets is the best team. Well, great. Storm has a really important role too. As we're hiring, let's reshuffle people so we're cross-training. That's really important. So if you're going to bring in HR people, they really need to be in the HR department to work with Anya and her team.
And you're right, and it's something that Gary and I have talked about, because when the proposal went out, and you can look at it from what we said, that proposal came from the reflection of 3 different commissions. We don't enjoy at times the benefit of our electeds on the city side of meeting outside of an office without causing, issues where somebody says you're holding an illegal meeting because 2 makes a quorum and you're doing something. If you were doing city, or in our case, doing district business, So I do recognize the fact that we've got to, that would be something, because I think the issue that came to head a lot of times when Gary and I met was, let's get this hardest log jam broken, because everything else then should fall into play. And the biggest log jam we had in play was, where is our management team fall into this org chart here? Because if we can settle that at the top, the bottom should go pretty smooth, which then would kind of take away from some of the siloing of the different things. But if we can't get that, then obviously, now, as you guys have looked at, the proposal that was sent over, there's probably parts that I wrote or hadn't thought on, that was part of Commissioner Pelche, Commissioner Wright. I didn't come up, hey, Kevin, did you, no, it was because it was one thing that we said as a collective, you need to put your stuff into it, because what I wasn't going to accept, because I was the chair at the time in the sense, was we're not going to put something there, negotiate in good faith, and then somebody raises their hand, oops, I forgot to put this. That will kill a moment faster than anything else. So each commissioner with staff and working on the prospective spot, we're told, you put it in there, and if you forgot, there's no tears. I don't want to hear about it later. because you forgot because you were assigned. No, if it's there, we negotiate it. If we decide that it's that, we get there. So that's why it came the way that you guys may have thought it, and it does look like it, because it's a large factor. And that was one way collectively as a board of commissioners, we could each say in good conscience, I got it off of my chest and put it into this proposal. And that's why it came in that sense. So, and then, like I said, Gary and I have been talking about it because he read it, he could see, yeah, there were certain things here, how do we get past that? But the biggest issue was about the management staff of this organization. And if you fix that problem, a lot of the other issues might work a lot easier. But
Do you have a couple other points?
I do.
yeah,
I
go ahead.
really
Sorry,
appreciated
yeah.
that. I think
Yeah.
that's really helpful. Sort of the regressive bargaining nature that can happen if you continue to add things. It's bring me another rock problem. We're trying to work that again. The other thing that the motivation for doing this now, in terms of controlling the destiny of your employees, you said something interesting, Dan, that you as you built the organization, you were sort of guaranteeing some employment for people that perform their jobs, right? I agree with you. This interaction, us doing this, does that for you. If we wait 10 years, it doesn't. That's the motivation, or at least that should be one of the motivations. You've made this guarantee. We're trying to come to you and say, look, let's let us be partners in this and guarantee it too. 10 years, I might not be here. The mayor might not be here. Councilmember Peter Shagan. Yeah, can't promise it.
How much is in here, budget?
Yes. So I look forward to the turn. I think that's positive. I think we should obviously look forward to that, receiving that.
I'm in a meeting.
That's all. That's all I got.
Anyone else have any comments on 4B?
So what is the scheduled meeting? You're meeting June 7th, did you say?
Yeah. And so you said a week and a half-ish for the document, so,
I asked to get comments back by the end of the week.
okay. Great. Are we okay moving forward on the agenda? Gary, you have something?
I just, information sharing, I think it's important that we maybe talk about this, and maybe you folks have talked with your counterparts at the sewer district, but, you know, in November, we passed a TBD. We have a list of projects that's, 19 projects or something. And as I was driving up Soper Hill, this is the prime example. That project is number 6 on the list, I believe. We need sewer in that road. And so I want to make sure that you guys are talking to each other, because when we get ready to do that, we don't want to be saying, yeah, but what happened here? So we have a list of projects that we're going to do in the next 10 years. And I want to make sure that we are on the same capital joint effort deal. And if we're not communicating to you folks, then obviously that's not going to happen. So I want to make sure that that is happening.
So Mariah, have you received their updated list of projects?
Just in general, like anybody from the public can, but not.
Not from our
working
counterparts?
yet.
I mean,
No.
we have a capital plan. It's a prioritized capital plan.
No, I know, and
right?
so do we.
So
But it's
Right.
been jump started here.
I would
with a
agree with
bigger
you.
Number,
We should,
so.
because those aren't all funded, right? There's as everything, the mind is willing and the body is weak when it comes. So it's gonna run out somewhere there. So if we need to reprioritize and move those things around, that would be, I mean,
Better to know now.
better to know now
So
for
that's
opening up streets
something
and
should
stuff.
be on next time's agenda to go over those
Well, I'm bringing
projects?
it up
or-
right now, so hopefully the staff gets the message of let's start talking.
Yeah,
We're
especially
on
at
the
your
same
top,
page.
your top.
If we're relying on the electeds to figure that one out.
Yeah,
bad.
that's on our level. That's the smart.
We'll
people
screw
level.
that up. That's right.
We'll work on
Yeah, great, thank you.
Good call.
it. I'll work, from my end, I'll work on it.
And I think Soper Hill's probably the main one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a multitude of utilities missing from Silver Hill Road, but it's going to become a major arterial with the activity up at the hill. It's going to be there, it needs to be improved. We need to have sewer, or we need to have storage.
It's a high capacity street now, isn't it?
Very high capacity, it's also transit
we'd
bike
like,
lanes and everything.
we'd really like to be able to expand the senior center up there in the future, and that's gonna require staff as well. So.
Great, anything else?
Capital projects?
Aye.
Where are we at?
Well, we were still on 4B. I wanted to move on to 5A, which is capital projects, so that's perfect. Aaron, you had something to say? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
The 131st Avenue Northeast Sewer Project is under design. The city was notified a few weeks ago that Commerce had an extra $208,000 to design a project. But we had to spend it by the end of June. So we quickly went through the RFQ process and the city contracted with Pace to do that design. I think that's consistent with the other leg as it is, so it's convenient. So they're under contract as of last week and design's underway.
That's exciting.
Yeah, agreed. So it will take sewer from 20th Street Northeast, 131st, all the way to Hartford with a leg east through the city property connecting to Machias and a future lift station. And then there are some other improvements planned as well. The site sewer lateral for the public workshop, for example.
That's huge.
It is. And the other thing we're gonna do out there is, at the same time, we're gonna do a sidewalk and some LED improvements.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions for Aaron? Mariah, do you have any comments on that?
Nope.
Okay, perfect. We'll move on to 6, the development review. So that was an attachment in the packet. And are there any questions on this?
It's a lot shorter than it used to be.
You've seen an increase though in hookups here lately, don't right? Not significant, but a couple, 100% increase.
Over what's 5, we're at 10, and we're excited.
No, we've seen some of the flats that have finished construction a while ago pay a connection fee, so I think we're in the 30 or so connection.
Great. Can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes from February 22nd, 2023? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so our next meeting, we want to schedule it for June or July?
I think it's important we schedule it for June, just from the standpoint of getting some feedback.
Yeah.
Keeping this ball rolling.
Okay,
That'd be the,
I'm just gonna be virtual.
I miss the warm hugs too.
the 21st, is that what we're looking at? June 21st? And I just wanted to recognize that council member, Donahue did arrive, so he's been up there for a while, he's just been listening. He could have jumped in anytime, but I just wanted
21st would be
to.
fine.
Okay, so June 21st, does that work?
July, or no, June, you're right.
June 21st, okay, great. Any other information or things we need to chat about? Perfect.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We had healthy debate, and it still ended at 5 o'clock.
Let's close this second one, then back in the utility, or back in the commissioner's meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We'll get this.
So you guys are back from the summer, huh?
Yes, yes, I'm back, I'm around, I'm gonna go